Hi, 8th graders. I've been missing you a lot since you've had your play practice and your rehearsals and all of your shows this week. So I want to go over some things with you so that we don't get too far behind. So one of the things I want to go over with you is factoring, but a little bit different than what we have done before. We're going to work on factoring when you don't have a coefficient of 1 at the beginning. So our trinomials look like this right now. We have an a squared term. We have a b squared or a bx term, which is a linear term, and then we have our constant. This is called a quadratic trinomial. It's a quadratic because 2 is our highest degree, and then we have 3 terms, so it's a trinomial. The trinomials that we have worked with previously have had a 1 right here. So it, may have looked something like this. And you guys got pretty good about putting that into its 2 parentheses and factoring that out. But today what I want to go over with you is, what if this is not a 1? What if this is another number? What if it's a coefficient greater than 1? So we're going to look at an example of that. So I'm going to give you, let's start with this one. 3x squared minus 19x plus 20. Okay, so right now I have 20 as my constant. I have 3 as my coefficient on my squared term. Remember, everything has to come up to a negative 19 in the middle when we're done, okay? So I'm going to, just like we factored the front end and the back end before, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put it into 2 binomials. I'm going to take my 20 and I'm going to factor him out. And one thing I like to do when there are coefficients greater than 1 is I give myself a little chart, a way to graph everything, a way to keep everything organized. So I'm going to break my 20 apart here, but I also have to break this number apart as well. So this number gets factored and this number gets factored. So I have a 3 on this side and I have a 20 on this side. And one thing I like to do is just write down all of my factors that I have possible here. So here I have a 4 and a 5, and I have a 2 and a 10, and I have a 20 and a 1. And those are all my factors of 20. Then I have my 3. Well, 3 is pretty easy because he's prime. So he's going to be 3 or 1, and that's all you're going to get. So what I need to do here is I need to figure out, how can I combine my factors of 3 with my factors of 20 and end up with a negative 19. Okay, so a negative 19 is what I'm looking for. So I look at the 3 and the 1, and I know I have a 3 and a 1 that I can match up with all of these factors. And I can even cross multiply here and take the 3 times the 15 or the 3 times the 4. But in any case, I'm trying to get a negative 19 out of any one of these scenarios up here, okay? So let's look. Let's look at all of these combinations and let's see if we come up with anything here. All right, so right here, if I take my 3 times my 12, 3 times 4, that would give me a 12. 1 times 5, that gives me a 5. If I put these two together, I cannot get 19. So maybe let's try to do a little cross multiplication with our factors. The 3 times the 5 is 15, and then the 1 times the 4 is 4, and that could give me a negative 19. If I look at all these others, I'm going to end up with 6s and 30s and 2s and 30s and too big. The same here. I'm going to end up with 60s and 1s, or a 3 and a 20. None of those are going to give me 19. So I know that it's not going to be these, that I'm looking with this combination right here. And this is where you just have to take some trial and error, take some time, and you have to mess with it and work it out here. So I know that I'm going to break this apart into a 3x and a 1x. I know that's the only way to factor apart a 3, is a 3 and a 1. Now over here, here's where I figured out where I need to put my 4 and my 5. The 3 was multiplied with the 5. So that means, because of FOIL, I know that the 3 and the 5 need to be multiplied together. I also know that this 4 and this 1 need to be multiplied together as well. So the 1x needs to go with the 4. Now I need to think about signs. If I'm going to end up with a negative 19, the 15 and the 4 both had to be negative. And that works out perfectly, because when I take a negative 4 times a negative 5, I get a positive 20, and I've got my constant. So this is it factored out. And so we had to do all this little side work here to figure out how to match up the factors. And remember, you can always go backwards and FOIL this back up, and you should end up back to this quadratic trinomial where we started from. Okay, so you have to figure out a pattern of factors for one times the pattern of factors for the other. And then when you add those products together, you end up with the middle term. I know it's a whole lot to go over. So I've put another video on there for you of another teacher explaining this on YouTube. But I kind of wanted to show you this method. We'll be using a lot of this method. Okay? All right. Good luck.